Hello and welcome to Thriving in the Age of Disruption. Today, Dr. Ramesh will share with you the story of a tenacious Vietnamese woman who has risen above her internal stories as that ugly, weird, impossible kid to embark on a journey to pursue her passions, creating in the process her personal brand and success story. Miss Jen VuHuong is a coach, trainer, and author. She's also an innovation, incubation, and startup ecosystem builder who's living her life's mission of empowering people to create joy and impact in life. Join Dr. Ramesh to hear Jen's story as she grows from being that kid from the countryside to venturing across the world and back once again to Vietnam, becoming in the process a keen observer and a powerful protagonist in her own life story.
Jen, welcome to Thriving in the Age of Disruption podcast series. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Thank you, Dr. Ramesh. I'm so honored to work with you in person and today virtually make something together. I will see myself as a person that was born to love people or to work with people. I use different ways that I call passion now to work with people so they can look deeper in themselves, believe in what they can do, take action and create joy and impact. The ways that's training, coaching, community building, or incubation. As I continue growing in my life, the ways can involve more. But the fundamental is that as a person, I really enjoy working with people potential.
You've described yourself in very broad terms, from being someone who works with communities, incubators, as well as on your own entrepreneurial project. So is there a title, a role, or you don't want to be defined by any of that?
It's interesting because I had refused to be titled by something. And I think it had a lot to do with my childhood story that I was labeled with being ugly, being weird, being impossible. And that made me not want to get any title. I don't really believe in the title, but I also learned that the title give people the focus of what they can work and talk to you to really conceptualize the conversation. So I put it out there like author, coach, a trainer, community connector. And I also have now program manager BK Holdings, our university business system. I found some program and my coaching business. So yes, there's some title there. I like to put it as a personal leadership development or to trainer coach. Yeah.
Wow. For someone who has a firm belief in not having titles, you sure can fit lots of categories. So, Jen, I was really looking forward to our conversation because in this podcast series, I explore the entrepreneurial mindset. So, someone with an entrepreneurial mindset is resourceful in life, able to manage uncertainty and risk, as well as to create value for themselves and others. While an entrepreneur is someone who starts a business and runs it. You have journeyed from being an engineer early in your career to, an entrepreneur. And at the same time, you work in corporates and the community.
The awareness I have now is my life with two major transformations. One is my career transformation from an engineer to now working more about people side, coaching, training, community building, or incubation. The second transformation that people call a personality. I was a very grumpy and very quiet person for almost 20 years. And now it's like I use communication as part of what I'm doing. I'm outgoing and love communicating with people. Very grateful person, not bitter and grumpy as before. So the two major transformations, I think it comes a lot from everyday reflecting on what I feel and why I'm here. I had a chance to look at my life different times to answer the question why I'm here. I think sometimes we just get on the trap of asking ourselves that question and then we do nothing about it. For myself, it was because I had almost 3 times I was called like close to death. One time I got an accident that I lost more than a liter of blood when I was very little. And one time I drowned in the river and I almost got kidnapped. So after 3 times like that, I knew that I had to be here for something beyond myself. I lived the life of 3 people combined. My younger sister passed away. I found that maybe I had to live for her. And my aunt, who was very close to me, like mom, passed away. And I also thought that I had to live for her. So this kind of spiritual, I don't know what is the word that you call it, but it was very helpful for me to really answer the question that I'm here for more than surviving every day, but to do something. And maybe some of the people who are listening right now is thinking like, oh, maybe I have to go through all these kind of physical incidents or some kind of very big challenge in their life to really answer the question. That's why we have the podcast like what you have been doing, Ramesh. I think is to raise our awareness. And we may not need to experience that physical incident. So I think that was my advantage in a way to really define that I am not the situation. I'm not where I'm from. I'm not the label. I'm not anything that can actually called by people, but it is something that huge and it's like the universe. And anytime I went to the field to work, because we had a big farm and I rode the buffalo and I planted the tree with my mom and dad. I saw the whole big area and the sky, and I always felt like I could be that kind of sky. I could have that power. I thought everyone could have that. When I was a kid, my brother also often gave me a story of heroes. So I thought like, yeah, there's real heroes there in my family and in stories. And in Vietnam, we have Ho Chi Minh and from all these people, they went abroad and they came back. Those stories around me in fiction or in non-fiction way. So this deep belief of every one of us could have that power to do something despite where we come from and despite all the social norm that had kept me going until now. And I was inspired by the incidents and by the gratitude to continue living after many challenges.
You've touched on multiple points here. Firstly, I think you've given us also a glimpse to how to manage in a crisis, because I define the crisis as a setback. That reflection that you do every day allows you to be grateful for what you have or you don't have. And I think that's really powerful. So thank you for sharing that. The other piece that I took away was the power of stories and how you tell the story to yourself. Because there could be that one story that you have, which is, okay, I am this, and be stuck forever and unhappy. Or you can create another story from that, which empowers you, which gives you the biggest space in life to look at what you want to pursue and also to be able to pick up the pieces. So looking at the sky and seeing how there's no limit to the sky, or looking at the superheroes that you aspire to be and you can become, and then seeing in real life, whether it's with Ho Chi Minh or other leaders that you've seen them in reality, all this comes back to our perception, which can change the kind of actions that we take and therefore the futures that we live in.
Yeah, you mentioned on the power of the story, and I would invite people to really look at the story that you tell yourself right now. And if it's not empowering, maybe you can do something about it. I'm also in the journey of really create new story for myself. I had a weird thinking when I was a little kid that I would die very early. I would die at 34, which is last year, right? Nothing happened, right?
Yes.
So we just had a weird thinking coming from where, and that was one of the things also kind of motivate me to really every day I truly live. Interestingly, last year I didn't die, I'm still alive, but I had a crisis in my health, and I thought to myself, it could be a kind of closing period of my life to create a very new story, because I have observed that the story that I told myself since I was a kid, I set goals about going abroad to study, learn from other people, and then come back to Vietnam and do something about it. And I have lived because of that story, the choices that I make for this new stage of my life need to create a very new, compelling and challenging future for myself. It's like a new standard that I can see clearly compared to the past. I changed my career from an engineer to then working more with people. And I had that story I had told myself for many times, even in an international speaking contest, that people didn't understand my passion, especially my family. And I even won the contest one time where I talk about I changed my career and I went bankruptcy 2 times and I was depressed when I was in Malaysia.
Yes.
I got a call from my family and they said they disappointed about me. They were so proud of me with all my scholarships and going abroad, but they felt so disappointed and shamed because I did go abroad, not one time, but many times, but I didn't even achieve the financial or material things as people who went abroad in my hometown. Normally they went as a labor working for factory. And that word of like feeling shame, it just felt like a heavy mountain on me. And I was inspired by my family to be better. At that time, I felt like my family didn't understand me. The source of my love didn't understand. And then I told that story and I felt so bitter. Many times telling that story, I felt like, oh, it seemed like I used that kind of reason for me to be okay with not doing okay. And
Very interesting.
yeah, very interesting. Because it was true that I was trying my best every day and people don't understand me, but I felt like somehow I kind of use it to feel okay with not being okay. And it was like 2 or 3 years I was struggling in that, my family and me and my passion. And when I stepped out of that story, even it was so clever story, and it was not because I wanted to make it up, but it was the reality. I said, okay, if my family, they wanted me to be happy, but the way they saw my happiness is different how I saw it. And it was how they expressed their care and their love. So I just stepped out of that and I saw all the things that I had gotten and what I had done. The little kid that went out hometown and got the inspiration, what she wanted to do in her life, I allowed myself to just take step by step. At that time, I realized because I really wanted to create like quick results for my family. So I just felt that gap because you could not get into the results right away after you just join the new career for 1 or 2 years. It took time and my engineering took 5 years. So I also had to take more years for my new career. So the gratitude was the thing to give me the new perspective on that story. It was the power of the story and I changed that story and now my family still I didn't understand. But the person who likes every single post of me would be my sister. So I know that they don't love me, but the way they see life is just different from how I see it. But ultimately, they really want me to be healthy and happy.
You raised a very important point. What kind of stories do we tell ourselves? Because that is important. Do we tell ourselves an empowering story that helps us to move forward into the future? Has us become big and grow? Or do we tell stories that keep us small and close and not growing? And that's where people can take the time to do self reflection or maybe go for a course or read some great books. Did you actually start and run a business of your own as well?
I am having one based on my personal brand. It started with the transformation that I had in myself. I was silent and quiet person. When I went to my university, I left my hometown. I was like a fish in the ocean. And I went to all the communities to learn to speak up, to be okay, to not be understood or to be okay to be judged. Even people didn't judge me, but I had all the fear and all the kind of little voices that people didn't understand me. People didn't like what I said. People didn't really learn anything from what I said. But I learned to just speak up despite all the voices that I had in my head. And I transformed to be a person who be able to speak up despite the fears. When I graduated in 2011 for my university, I worked full-time for Samsung, but I also at the same time started a community-based business with my friend. He was the one who really taught me about doing business with passion. It was a journey of 1 year. We invested our time every night and weekend after our full-time job at Samsung. At that time, we didn't really earn money, but we could grow the community from some people to 40, 50 people every single meeting that we had every week and then become like twice a month. And we saw the demand in the more advanced programs. But as a person who did it for passion, I didn't really have the kind of business model or business mindset to run it profitably. My friend and I, after 1 year, we didn't really make it sustainable regarding finance and even the way we run it with the team because I often went abroad to do a business trip when I was in Samsung. And that's when I realized I wanted to learn more. And that was a very beginning stage of the business. I went to study first master. I came back, wanted to start, but I felt like I was not ready and one just wanted me to go to work in the corporate and things like that with my master. I was not confident from inside with my new career and my entrepreneurial journey, right? So I went to work for their partner in Penang, Malaysia. Daily, apart from work, I working on my skill of training, speaking, coaching, and started building all the essential things for my past passion-based business. And then I went to study in the UK to really have a mentor and the network to then be more confident in the new career. It was a time where I started earning money for my coaching, training, and community activities in 2016. And I also met my first mentor. We would discuss and strategy every single way. When I came back to Vietnam, I keep doing that community building and that business based on my personal brand. And then I joined my university business speaker holdings because I had a story when I was a kid. Went abroad and came back and do something with Vietnam in the macro level, which has something to do with the government. So I was still like working under that story myself when I was a kid.
That's great that you shared with us your passion-based business. And I think with those of us who are pursuing a passion, it's okay to keep it as a passion and to enjoy it. There's no need to convert it into a business. The more important point about entrepreneurship is the entrepreneurial mindset, because you train and develop yourself to become this resourceful human being who's interested to create value for others. And I think that's a necessary skill set for today's world where we see a lot of disruption, because what's happening outside is something we can't control, but we can definitely control what we experience and how we interpret the experience. Can you share your view about spirituality and where you are on your spiritual journey?
I didn't know this was spiritual when I was a kid. I had a sense I am not really in my body because I always had a feeling that I'm just in my body or in the gen here in this life. This has something to do with 3 different times that I almost died. Also, I had a sense that I still felt that the soul of my aunt who passed away or my younger sister passed away still live in somebody that I have met during my life. And that's kind of very special connection, or maybe with my older sister. She just suddenly died in the evening or in the very early morning. Even she normally sleep early, 3 a.m., 2 a.m. She could actually text. And during these times, normally I had some kind of very challenging situation for my life. So I would have some experiences like that I would feel there's some bigger thing beyond us out there. That has been what I always believe. And I always still relate to the sky and the universe, that I think this can also reflect on my big belief in the potential I believe every one of us can have. Every year I get excited to dig deeper myself, to experience different dimensions of myself. This kind of expansion of the consciousness. And I think that's spirituality. Yeah. And I also believe that we all connect with energy, and what you send or intention to send to somebody, it can go to that person if that person is open to receive.
Wow, you've taken us through different aspects of spirituality, from the experience of I'm not my body. You've had, like you said, 3 near-death experiences. So when you say this is not my body, you have some experience of that moment that most of us will not have. You talked about spirituality as in being bigger than ourselves, something out there, almost like energy, a consciousness, and how you keep expanding on that. Like I shared with you before in the podcast when you interviewed me, I think one of the greatest joy and the most meaningful thing is to be able to keep expanding our consciousness. The simple definition of consciousness is awareness, and it starts with self-awareness and, of course, awareness of the situation around us, like social awareness. Those are the 2 important pieces. So thank you for letting me reflect on that too.
Thank you. Yeah, it was interesting to learn your story at that time when you tried not doing well in school as a communication to your parents about what was going on inside you. So it's very interesting to look at and learn from ourselves as an observer.
That's right. Is it possible for people to live a simple life?
Yeah, I also really like to hear your perspectives on simple life. I just feel like some people see life is simple, but some people may not see it as simple. So when you talk about simple life, how do you see it?
I think there are 2 aspects to life. One is how we think, and 2 is how we live. right? And the thinking part of it is easier, at least for me, because I don't have so much of noise. It's at least about myself. So I can keep it simple. So long as I know how to shut out all the other voices, which are also loud: society, friends, family, norms, culture. There is the life that you and I are exposed to on a day-to-day basis. When I was younger, maybe it was harder, but when you get older and you come to the point where I am in my life, then I guess you don't need to be bothered about those comparisons. So maybe it gets simpler too at that stage.
Simplicity is interesting because if I look at how I can feel joyful and I feel like I actually live in this life with this body or with this chance of interact with people physically, I feel that I'm doing the right thing based on what I believe, and it's also contribute something for the society. It's like every day I be better. People call it 1%. I could grow and I could create the joy and create some values for people. The simple life is about having what is the thing to make you feel that you truly live in this life and that you are feeling the meaning of it and you're feeling that you're doing the right thing. And then the way of doing, not complicated, to make you feel every day just like being in the doing mode. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
I just started getting it today.
Yeah, it does. It can be simple when you get clear about what's important to you, like what's worth living, right? But then where the complexity comes is when you have to make the moment by moment choices to live the life simply, because you will have sometimes many things that you can be looking at and many things that you want to do. And that requires you to do a trade-off. But if you are really clear about what's important to you and you stay on course, then you can always bring simplicity back.
Yeah, there's some of the beliefs are running underneath us, something going on in the unconscious mind. And I had to reflect on why I always wanted to do more. I enjoy every moment, everything I do. I have to believe that when I do something, I want to do it more than 100%. If I don't really put 100% or more than that on something, I don't feel that it's me. So this means that I will go to the stage of getting overwhelming. I don't know if anyone also have that kind of situation. You firmly believe that if you are living as you, then you will 100% doing something when you decide to do that. So it means that anything you do, you want to do that and you're going to get overwhelming for sure. So the idea is to go back and really focus on the selective, the optimal ways to optimize or execute what you want to do. And for me, the reason I think I always wanted to do more, it came from I was a kid that I was not enough, and that is still running somewhere. Even I was subconsciously aware of that, but I think it's still hidden somewhere to make me make some choices just because I had to do it to make me feel that I could do it because of that belief. And another belief probably because my family at the beginning, I felt that they didn't understand my choice. So I wanted to create the result so they could believe in my choice. I had a time I went to do a lot of kind of investments just because I had to make the people I love see the results quick. This is sometimes still like running under some choices that I have made. And I think the last year when I went to the health crisis, it was the time I was reborn, and my family saw that nothing mattered really as long as I was healthy. And I also deeply felt that at that moment, everything was great as long as I was healthy for my family. And I became really more in peace. I think deeply inside myself in what I'm going to go for in the years to come. Over the last years, especially COVID, I also learned we can stand alone or we can stand together.
What are the three things that represent thriving for you?
My name is Jen, joyful, empowering, and nature. Actually, I changed it to become nurturing because I have seen that everything in my life has been nurtured. That's what I also want to do with people, nurture their potential or what they have that they don't even see it yet. So for me, this has been the three words that I want to bring in whatever I do, bring the joy, give people that kind of energy, that kind of empowerment that they could have something inside them to bring out, believe in that potential, do something about it, and nurture it on the way and be authentic of themselves. And I also have the love gift of what I learned from my siblings. They had been like striving and then thriving, and they have been loving me unconditionally and giving me unconditionally. And I have seen that anyone in this planet, if they are happy, healthy, and successful, they truly give to other people and pay forward. Like what are you doing right now with this podcast? I think that is also demonstration of giving and pay forward. So yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. What are your thoughts and wishes for women in 2023, as well as advice for young women who are trying to find their place in the world?
Yeah, I think go for a walk once a week or once a month. Now, if you already live in the nature, I think that's a great advantage. And I am inspired by that image anytime I think about that little group looking at the sky and believe that you are more than whatever, and give yourself that permission to write down what you want to do that make you feel proud of yourself. And it's your need, your desire, not your parents, your husband, your wives, but it's something that's from deeply inside you. The answer may not come up clearly, and it has been repeated over and over again, the same thing. Maybe you want to do something about it. And if you have been doing it, I think maybe you can help some people out there, because I have seen a lot of women out there who have that desire to do something, especially when they already got married, they had children, and they found like, oh, I didn't achieve that goals. And they somehow they felt it because they had families, and they started worrying that back. It was interesting because I talked to them like they actually had more family, and now they can still work on that desire, that dream again. So never lose that sense of you still have the potential. And if you really want to do something about it because you don't feel right, I think you can do something about it. And either listening to podcasts, like meeting people who really try on their lives, I think it can give you the sense of community and collective power to take a step forward. Or maybe you can start off doing something new every single day, start a new habit.
Wow.
And so any little thing like that, I think the fundamental is to really step out of the big picture you have right now to really see the real big picture for yourself. When I was in the UK, and there was a friend, and she told a story in my seminar as a guest speaker, and she said she always tried to be a man, and she always tried to be masculine, and she didn't want to do it, and she wanted to embrace feminines of herself. And at that moment, I thought, like, do I also have that, like, in myself? Everyone called me a tomboy since I was a little kid up to my university. I remember the story, and I felt like, yeah, I did have that time in my life that I resisted to really talk about women, men, because I felt no differences. But then I think that story was still with me to remind me that, that actually I can take the advantages of that to just embrace on what I'm doing. And the reason I resisted was because I still had the impact from the label that I had. If you see that you resisted on anything, maybe that is a sign to work on. Yeah. So anytime I resisted or I had that kind of very strong reaction on something, I felt like, oh, it's interesting. Maybe it came from something inside that I didn't really work on yet. Yeah.
That's right. Wow. That's really great. Thank you very much for this comprehensive list of what young women can take on and practice to be successful in life.
I know that there's some studies about leadership that women in leadership really make a great impact because as a nature, women have that compassion, and as a mother, as the sister, if you can embrace that to become the empowering thing rather than something hinder what you can do, yeah, I think you will be blooming and shining.
Wonderful. Thank you. So, Jen, you're a published author.
Yeah, I published 6 books, and I'm working on my number 7 now on coaching. And it was really inspired by a group of people who attended our coaching programs in innovation and entrepreneurship. Yeah.
What was the motivation behind writing all these books?
Yeah. So I would like to say thanks to my sister. I had a story on the television talking about the reason I went to write. It was because of her. Thank you, my sister. She and I were not getting along, and I had a very extreme thinking on her when I was a little kid that I could not live in the same house with her because she often told me that I was very naughty. I one time went to her table when she did her study. I normally never wanted to touch anything because I didn't like her at the time, right? But I saw a notebook open and I saw all the keywords that I never thought it would relate to my sister. Love, hope, and it made me want to look deeper into it. And I saw that she was worrying about my future if I was naughty. And she had a hard time overcoming of the passing away of my grandfather, who was very close. So I didn't read a lot, but I just read some sentences like that. And it totally shifted my relationship with her just because I started seeing that she always cared about me. As a kid, sometimes you didn't know that even it was obvious. And because of that, I thought like a piece of writing could change somebody's life and perspective. And so I started writing every day thanks to my sister. And I didn't think it was a book, but when I left my hometown, I talked about my stories with my friends and they said like I could put it in book so I don't need to repeat it over and over again. And I just started putting everything in books. It's more about closing a chapter of my life when I define first is my mission, and the second is like define some goals that I have in my life, and the third one is like the passion that I found to execute my mission to develop my self leadership and community leadership about habit. And the latest one is about women on the other.
Wow.
That was the journey why I put all the things and why I got inspired to write in books. Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing your inspiration, Jen. It's been really a great interview. I enjoyed talking to you and learning from you. And thank you for being with us on this podcast show.
Thank you for having me to listen to my story as an observer again and get some insights from my own sharing. Yeah.
Great. Wonderful.
Thank you for joining Dr. Ramesh and Jen today. If you're inspired by Jen's entrepreneurial experience and interested to learn more about the entrepreneurial mindset, check out Dr. Ramesh's book, The Big Jump into Entrepreneurship 2.0. Simply click on the Amazon link provided in the podcast description. In addition, make sure you follow Dr. Ramesh on LinkedIn so that you'll get the latest insights from her and our amazing podcast guest speakers. Next up, Dr. Ramesh moves over to Singapore to meet with Dr. Neo Kok Beng, an award-winning engineer, educator, and entrepreneur, whose latest venture includes the development of the personal aerial vehicle, or flying car. Be sure to join us for the next episode.